This video was brought to you by supporters on Patreon. If you would like to see videos just like this much more frequently, as well as see them 1 week ahead of time and completely ad-free, plus receive a whole bunch of other exclusive stuff, you can head over to patreon.com/shiveringpixel. Once again, that is patreon.com/shiveringpixel. The Wii was a massive departure for Nintendo, and a relatively risky one. In part disappointed by the lackluster sales of the GameCube and emboldened by the success of the DS and its unique hardware editions, Nintendo decided to break away from directly competing with Microsoft and Sony by de-emphasizing the pursuit of the latest in raw graphical horsepower. Nintendo instead chose to focus on unique controller technology. And no major console manufacturer before the Wii had so heavily emphasized motion control hardware as their primary means of interfacing with the console. Okay, sure, the PS3 released 7 days before the Wii and had integrated gyro controls in their bundled-in 6-axis. But the PS3 was not advertised around its gyroscopic controls. Everything about the Wii, at least in its first year, was marketed around its motion controls. And that, at least in part, plays into Nintendo's decision to name the console Wii. However, this naming decision, as calculated as it was within Nintendo, had an extremely rancid initial reception among Western journalists, teenagers, and internet shut-ins.
Okay, next, the name. First, we want to thank everyone who wrote good things about it the day you heard it. Both of you.
So, why did Nintendo choose to name their newest console Wii? Where did the name Wii come from anyway? And why was the console's name mocked among Westerners? We'll take a look. You read that right. It says, why was called the Wii? Now, as I alluded to earlier, the name Wii is irrevocably intertwined with both the console's development history and Nintendo's marketing philosophy behind the console. So this is where we will begin. In 2001, shortly after the release of the GameCube, Nintendo began work on a new console. This time, however, the company decided to dramatically veer from the philosophy behind their previous console iterations. Nintendo's integrated research and development team came to the consensus that they would not focus on chasing raw console horsepower, and instead focus on unique hardware features. During an interview with Business Week, Miyamoto emphasized that he was concerned about the oversaturation of powerful consoles. He said, too many powerful consoles cannot coexist. It's like having only ferocious dinosaurs. They might fight and hasten their own extinction. I imagine Miyamoto's mindset at that point in time was also a direct response to extremely lukewarm sales of the Nintendo GameCube. Now, at this very early point in the Wii's development cycle, the console was referred to internally and to the press as GameCube Next, which is very obviously a placeholder title. This emphasis to step away from raw horsepower gains later became intertwined with another crucial focus for the Wii's design. In 2003, the then recently appointed president of Nintendo, Satoru Iwata, met with Shigeru Miyamoto and head of Nintendo IRD, Genyu Takeda, to brainstorm ideas for the GameCube successor. At this meeting, Satoru Iwata gave Takeda the next requirement for the Wii's design, and this was that their next console had to appeal to mothers. In other words, what would make moms want to purchase this funny rectangle for their kids? Everything about the console at the design and hardware level had to match the "would mom like this?" ethos. For the three men at that meeting, this appeal to mommy meant that the new Nintendo console absolutely could not focus on horsepower, as that meant that the cost could approach an estimated 50,000 yen, or $450. focusing on raw console horsepower would also mean that the console would need to include fans, something that the three men in that meeting agreed that mothers would hate because of its noise. Additionally, it would take the console way too long to boot up, which, Miyamoto argued, is not an ideal toy. Now, I do want to mention that the Wii did have internal fans, but it was much quieter than, say, the eardrum-shattering screams of the older models of the Xbox 360. Simplicity and especially minimalism played a huge part in the marketing, design, and presentation of the console. Out with the bulky design of the GameCube, in with the sleek and small white slab that can easily fit under or beside the television. Goodbye disgusting, unsightly old electronic sludge. Hello Virtual Console and GameCube backwards compatibility. In addition to attracting mothers, another pillar that Nintendo resolved to build the console's identity around was the introduction of motion-based controls. Inspired by Dance Dance Revolution's unique controller options, Miyamoto and his team collaborated with the company Gyration's motion sensing technology. Now, I would like to return to something that Miyamoto mentioned earlier, which I think is a very important and overlooked component in their strategy to name the Wii. And that is Miyamoto's use of the word toy. By using this terminology to describe the upcoming console, Miyamoto, and by proxy Nintendo, make it very clear that from a conceptual level, this machine was not meant to primarily appeal to the same demographic that sought the Xbox 360 or the PlayStation 3. Now, of course, the 360, PS3, and Wii all easily fit into the description of a toy. They are all objects meant for recreation, especially among kids. However, unlike Nintendo, Sony and Microsoft did not and would never publicly describe their gaming consoles as toys, not in interviews, press releases, showcases, or marketing materials. Now, why is that? Well, there's a few key reasons. The word toy has very strong negative connotations of being cheap, low quality, and especially childish. It is very important that, from a marketing perspective, Microsoft and Sony maintain the public perception that they are selling the consumer premium hardware and premium experiences. You can see this premium experience framing in how they revealed and presented the features, specs, and software of the PS3 and the 360. And presenting the 360 and PS3 as toys would diminish this premium perception. Additionally, and to a lesser degree, the PS3 and 360 were primarily marketed toward teenage and young adult males. Using a term like toy to describe their console in marketing, a word which has very strong diminutive and childish connotations, has the potential to alienate these audiences, especially in the mid-2000s. Nintendo, on the other hand, embraced the term toy at the conceptual level, as they sought very different target demographics with the Wii: families, kids, and those who had never before engaged with video games. To reach this demographic, this also meant that Nintendo targeted a more financially accessible price point and also heavily emphasized the, at the time, very novel motion control capabilities of the console. Because of this, I strongly feel that this toy framing very heavily influenced Nintendo's name choice for the console. Among everything else, the word Wii feels very toyetic to me. So, to recap, Nintendo's requirement to attract mothers, their adjacent desire to combine and simplify the home entertainment setup, and an emphasis in making a novel and toyetic piece of machinery are all what contributed to the name Wii. However, we haven't quite reached Nintendo's final naming decision in the story just yet. Once Nintendo solidified the identity and feature set of the console, Nintendo transitioned from calling their upcoming console GameCube Next to giving it the name that the gaming press and forum dwellers knew for most of its rumored history. And that is the codename Nintendo Revolution. Satoru Iwata first unveiled the console at E3 2004 using the codename Revolution, and the gaming public grew very attached to that name. And to be fair, it is an extremely evocative name. Evocative of future dictator Miyamoto demanding that you BLJ your way inside the Pentagon. Now, I would like to reiterate that this is a codename. Nintendo has done this since the Famicom, which was developed under the codename Gamecom. No, not that Gamecom. However, the world came crashing down on that handful of rabid forum users on April 26, 2006, when the console's name was formally announced as the Wii. According to the philosophy page of the official Wii website, which by the way doesn't exist anymore, and the Wayback Machine never captured that page when it did exist. If you try to click on that page inside of the Wayback Machine, it will just redirect you to the Wii U webpage. Good stuff. According to the official Wii website, Nintendo confirmed that the two lowercase i's in the word Wii are meant to symbolize two people standing side by side. The two i's in the word Wii are additionally meant to symbolize the Wii Remote and its nunchuck. In that same website statement, Nintendo also cemented their name choice by arguing that the Wii sounds like Wii, which emphasized that the console is for everyone. Nintendo continued, further arguing that the Wii can easily be remembered by people around the world, no matter what language they speak. So, the final reasoning behind the name choice for Wii was ultimately a marketing push to appeal to as wide of a demographic as possible, as well as integrate the console's own hardware peripherals into the console's name, identity, and ethos. On paper, I think centering the branding around attracting as many demographics as possible at as many levels of relationship with gaming as possible is an excellent branding move. However, to a bunch of very online Western teenagers and perverts, one glimpse of the name Wii, and you are instantaneously drowning in a biblical flood of dick and piss jokes. So yeah, I'm sure you've guessed it by now. But just in case you completely skipped middle school, the reason why Nintendo was mocked for naming their console Wii is because Wii sounds like a euphemism for penis and/or urine to native English speakers. This led both Vice President of Corporate Affairs Perrin Kaplan and President of Nintendo of America Reggie Fils-Aimé to engage in damage control interviews to defend and justify the name choice of Wii. Perrin Kaplan soon agreed to an interview with Matt Casamassina of IGN. In that interview, Kaplan argued two key points. She felt that Wii was a brand name that was as distinctive, unique, and memorable for the average consumer as Google, Amazon, or Virgin Airlines. Secondly, Kaplan reiterated the Wii's brand vision from the Wii website's philosophy page. She argued that Wii is for everyone, of all shapes and sizes, and that inclusivity messaging is right there in the Wii name. Reggie Fils-Aimé, on the other hand, spoke with the Electronic Gaming Monthly to argue the name Wii over the Revolution. Reggie responded, "Nintendo knows our fans love the Revolution name, but the fact is, Revolution as a name is not ideal. It's long, and in some cultures, it's hard to pronounce. So we wanted something that was short, to the point, easy to pronounce, and distinctive. That's how Wii, as a console name, was created." In that same interview with EGM, Reggie added a few key bits of information that hold up very well in retrospect. He mentioned that, in the end, Wii as a console name was, in our belief, the perfect choice. I do think the fans will accept it. And in terms of all the dirty jokes, frankly, we could have come up with a range of other names where that type of stuff would have happened anyhow. Additionally, Reggie thought that some members of the media are getting more hung up with the name than the consumers or the fans are. I'm talking to a lot of fans and asking them the question, how do you feel about the name? And I'm hearing a hell of a lot more positives than negatives. I'm hearing acceptance and support for the direction we've settled in on. And as we move forward, my expectation is we're going to hear more and more support as people get comfortable with the name. And ultimately, he was right. The initial mockery of the name Wii effectively amounted to almost nothing in terms of impacting the Wii's success. And a lot of those same forum dunkers eventually softened on and came around to the name of Wii. Now, the biggest aid in winning audiences over with the Wii name was the Stephen Gaghan directed "We Would Like to Play" commercial campaign. This campaign massively helped sell the idea to the general public that Wii means we, as well as get Americans on board with the Wii name and brand by emphasizing the console's motion control capabilities and its ability to bring people together. allowing Nintendo to sell 6.29 million consoles in the United States alone within its first year on the market.
And after a year on the market, Nintendo continues to cash in on the Wii. November was the biggest month yet for the game console, with nearly 1 million sold. If you can't seem to get your hands on one in time for Christmas because of supply shortages, Nintendo is offering rain checks exclusively through GameStop stores.
And thanks to its motion controls and the bundled-in Wii Sports, the console even managed to capture a demographic that had never interfaced with video games at all. So there you have it. That is the story of why the Wii was named Wii. If you liked this video, please make sure to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell to see new videos and updates the second they release. This will also massively help the channel grow. Additionally, I would like to give a huge, massive, gargantuan thank you to Shivering Pixel patrons, Mr. Badger, Scotty Scotties, and Chiante. If you would like to support what I do, as well as have your name read aloud on each and every new video, have access to the Discord, and receive a whole mountain of exclusive stuff, you can head over to patreon.com/shiveringpixel. Once again, that is patreon.com/shiveringpixel.